Hello again. Track day is here once more. The Chevelle has fought me every step of the way, but it is finally ready. Let me take you back and show you all the new things I had to contend with this week. If you've been following along here with the old Chevelle, you know that there has been one nagging nuisance since the very beginning that has just been a persistent thorn in my side, and that has been the song of this here trunk flapping in the wind. Well, that is no more. This old thing has flapped its last tune. It is being removed and we are replacing it. I ended up finding another forest green trunk lid on Facebook Marketplace. It is from a slightly younger sister car to this. It's from a 72 Monte Carlo, but we are going to make it work anyway. Now, because this is such a momentous occasion, I am going to savor every minute of this. I've been looking forward to this for quite a while. This old trunk lid here is saying its last tune. It will bother me no more. So I probably should have picked up a new rubber seal, now that I'm thinking of it, since this one here is pretty petrified. But a lot of the little kind of drip rail, whatever you want to call it, that comes inside of here is pretty rotted out through here. I need to do a lot of rust repair back here. I did pick up the new ones that they sell that kind of get welded in, that runs from this top bend, comes down around the bottom here, and connects into the kind of taillight panel, which I also picked up a new one of as well, since a lot of that's rusted out. So I've got a lot of the new sheet metal back here. Just need to get around to putting it in, but for the moment, just shutting this thing up is all I care about. So that's going to do it for me. Yes, I know I need to invest in electric tools. One of these days, when I stop buying new parts, perhaps I'll start buying new tools. All right, one last bolt to go. So exciting. All right, let's get this thing thrown outside. Hopefully we'll never see it ever again. Whoops. Scratch paint. Alright, it's time to Hercules our nice new replacement here in place. These things are lighter than hoods. Okay, well, at least that was sort of started. Work my way over to here to the other side. Use the old head again. So let me walk you through our crown jewel here. I got really lucky in finding this thing on Marketplace in the first place. I almost skipped right over the ad because it was a bulk lot of 70 to 72 Monte Carlo parts listed for $800. The picture of it was just mostly like headlight and taillight assemblies, some interior pieces, bumpers, that sort of stuff. So I really didn't think anything of it, just kind of glossed over it. And then I saw that they were only about 70 miles away. So I was like, oh, well, maybe I'll take a chance and see if they've got a deck lid. So I clicked on the link. It pulled up the pictures. They had a little video that just kind of walked through and panned through everything that they had. And I could just barely make out in the background the exterior here of this green deck lid. And I got really excited. So jumped on the Google, and sure enough, they made a forest green Monte Carlo. And I was like, that thing looks so close to ours. The patina is kind of similar. It's kind of got a little bit of rust on it. I can make that out. I'm like, that thing would look great on here. But the only thing that you could see was the exterior here. You couldn't see anything else. That was the only picture. It was from a bit of a distance away. And one thing that threw me for a loop was I didn't know that they had these key guards on here. And you couldn't see this. This was kind of blocked up until kind of like the top of the little head there, or wherever that thing is. So all I could see was just a shiny piece at the top. So I thought maybe somebody had mangled up the lock mechanism or something like that. Couldn't really tell what actual condition it was. So I sent them a message. A really nice lady responded, and they were liquidating their parents' estate, and they had a bunch of Monte Carlo parts. Apparently they grew up on Monte Carlos, had owned a number of them over the years. So that's where all these parts had come from. I asked if she would sell the deck lid here separate. She said no problem whatsoever. So then I started asking about the condition, obviously, because I mean, the substructure here was the most important thing to me. I do not want another rattler. So she was working at the time, said she'd send me some pictures later. And I mean, if we look this thing over, it is just immaculate under here. I mean, it's a little bit dirty and dusty, but there is just no rust anywhere underneath this thing. So next up, just need to get it adjusted here, get it where it'll actually latch, work on the gaps a little bit more, and then come through and replace the rubbers here. I do have the new rubber bushings there. So with just a few adjustments here, I was able to get this trunk to line up really, really nicely. I'm very happy with the fitment on here. So at the back where it meets the quarter, it's all nice and flush through here. The little contoured line through there matches up really nicely where that bend is. It's all the same height going forward here. The gap stays nice and even. At the front, it's just a little bit tighter than the rest, but it's not bad at all. It doesn't rub on anything, doesn't bind anywhere, so perfectly content with that because it allows all of the rest of this to line up really nicely. Over here on the passenger side, it's just a little bit of a different story. The gap is just a tiny bit wider up here. There's not enough adjustment in the hinge on this side to bring it more forward. So probably need to wallow out the hole maybe a little bit more to just get a tiny bit more movement out of this. It's also sitting slightly high for some reason over here. Got a little bit more gap right here than compared to the driver's side, but still not too bad. But what that's causing is here at the back, it's shoving the rear of the trunk just a little bit too far back from where it should be. So it doesn't really line up with where this line should be. You can see the trunk lid sticking out a little bit further back from the quarter panel. Now I see this on Chevelles all of the time. When I go to car shows and see fully restored cars, I'll see them with this kind of trunk to quarter alignment really far off, similar to what we've got here. But it looks like we'll be able to fix ours and get ours to line up really easily. Yeah, definitely a good pickup on the trunk here. Now the patinas definitely don't quite match. We've got a lot more green here on the new panel compared to the old one. As you can tell, this thing is just scorched. It's kind of blackened and really dark blue hues to it compared to what we've got over here, but and still it looks significantly better back here. It looks a little less just kind of ratty junkyard car, a little bit more just crappy on the road car, if that makes sense. So we're making progress, but I mean the big thing is no more rattles. I mean this thing is solid, and I don't even have the new rubber bumpers installed in there yet, so still need to get around to doing that. But that's going to do it for tonight. Absolute huge win for the Chevelle here, finding this trunk, getting this thing on here. We've got some more shakedown runs to do tomorrow, so we should be able to tell immediately if this has made a difference. So under the hood here, there's just a couple of things I want to try to take care of. I didn't end up changing out the alternator belt yet since we threw in the towel at the end of the last video. I want to go ahead and get that swapped out. Hopefully we won't be throwing any more of those. Additionally, I wasn't very happy with the heater hose bypass solution that I came up with. I just kind of had to make do with what I had on hand at the time. So I was able to go out to the local parts store, find this fitting here. It's a 3/4 to 5/8. So this should work a whole lot better than that kind of metal NPT to barbed fitting adapter that I've got in there right now. That's meant to be threaded into a manifold. So gonna go ahead and clean up on that a bit and get this belt changed out. So unfortunately I was unable to fit that adapter in there. I really should have found like a 90-degree one, but it is what it is. So I did clean that up just a little bit better. I've got the new belt installed in there. This one seems to fit a lot better. So I'm not sure if the other one just was slipping for a while and just kind of ate itself apart or what the case might have been. So hopefully this takes care of the belt issue. Got one more issue to take care of on the rear brake here and we'll be set to go. We are back inside that rear passenger brake drum one more time. If you paid close attention to the last video, you may have noticed that I made a couple of mistakes. I was just rushing through this, wasn't paying a whole lot of attention, and just made some really dumb errors. So the first was that I forgot the little retainer here entirely. Now this little guy sits on the stud at the top. The springs go on the outside of it, and this just kind of holds the top of the shoes in place. I forgot that entirely. Then the other mistake I made, I wasn't paying attention and put the shoes in the wrong order. So you should have one shoe like this that has a really long pad on it. and then another one like this, which is your short. And this actually is supposed to go in the front. And I got them reversed here on this side. When I realized we weren't going to make it to the track and I slowed down, I got them correct over on the other side. Didn't forget any parts over there, so I realized the mistake. I ended up seeing that this was laying in the parts pile there as soon as I kind of finished up and was cleaning up the garage here. This is what it should have looked like the very first time that I was in here. Got everything back together again, fixed all my mistakes. Gonna go ahead, throw the drum on here, adjust this out, get the wheel back on her, drop her down, and hopefully never have to come back in here ever again. So I did not make it far at all, and I've already got issues. It's low on transmission fluid, it's not engaging drive very well. Could have been from when we leaked it out the front here, might have been low already, but we have no other leaks, so I'm just gonna go ahead and top that off, see how it goes. Additionally, I've got a horrible whirring noise coming from the alternator here. I took the belt off. You can hear it there. It's really gritty feeling. You can actually feel it when you spin it. So I'm gonna get that replaced right quick. There is one in town. The water pump seems to be fine, but I may pick up another one just in case. It's midday Friday here, so we're getting really tight on time again. I would really like to get some shakedown miles on this thing and see how it does, but it is fighting us every which way. So I got the new alternator installed. It has quieted down the squealing quite a bit. Just topping the transmission fluid off here, and then hopefully we'll finally be able to hit the road. So after about the first 5 miles here, the car is just doing fantastic. The smoke seems to be a lot less than it used to be. Obviously the noise level is significantly reduced. Hopefully the camera is picking that up here. I do have a new microphone on order, so it'll get a little bit better as I'm driving, but the car is doing so well. All the gauges are working, the speedometer's working, the odometer's working. It's just a nice, comfortable drive right now. Exactly what I wanted out of this thing. So I'm just going to sit back and enjoy. So I think I probably still have a little bit of interference up there with one of the brake caliper brackets. When I hit the brakes, I can just kind of hear a little bit of like a ticking noise, but it's not too bad. It's only when I'm really on the brakes, like trying to stop relatively quickly. If I just ease into them, I don't really hear it. There it was there. Yeah, just absolutely gorgeous out here in Michigan. The perfect time to do a drive like this. Mid-late October, all the colors just still changing. None of the leaves have fallen just yet. should have a little bit of another opportunity here to kind of ham on it. Maybe see if I can get it to cut out again. Got some cars in front of me though. Yeah, I did it there again. I'm not sure what that's about. It's like it's loading up or something. So I made it back home here in the old Chevelle. We put about 75 miles on her today. She is doing very good. It drives beautifully, the brakes work really well, no noise out the back with that trunk being fixed. The smoke has cleared up significantly out of the back here, especially now when the secondaries kick in. It is hardly noticeable. I can see black behind me now, which is telling me that we're running a little bit rich. But I still need to try to diagnose that sort of hesitation, sort of falling on its face issue I was having. It only happened about 3 times out of maybe the 15 times that I just really get on it. It seemed like it was mostly if I just sort of roll from a stop, get it in second gear, and then kind of mash into it. And it seemed like it would happen right around or right after it shifted to third, where it would just fall on its face. And I'd have to let off the gas and then get back into it, and then it would come right back around and it would just rev out perfectly fine after that. So not sure if it's just a vapor issue with the fuel over there. Maybe I got it too close to the exhaust, something like that. So I'm gonna go ahead and put her in the garage, probably tuck her away for tonight, try to check her out in the morning, see if we can get something figured out. But other than that, I think she is ready. Track day is upon us once again, and once more I'm out here before the sun's come up, trying to fix issues before we head out. So yesterday during the test drives, the car just kept falling on its face in the upper RPM bands. Now thankfully I had the recordings to fall back on. I could just go and replay it over and over and over again, trying to figure out what was happening. Makes it much easier to diagnose than trying to work off a memory, or even just that short little bit of time that you have when it actually happens. So I think what's going on is that we're getting some fuel starvation here, that we're just running that carburetor dry. Now when I put that on there, I did check the float levels in it. They seem to be set correctly. I know these quadrujets are pretty sensitive because they're a fairly small bowl, but I'm thinking we might have an issue somewhere else, but it's hard to figure out where, since everything is pretty much new at this point in time. We have the new fuel tank, the new fuel sending unit, which includes the sock, so we shouldn't have any sediment problems, we shouldn't have any clogs back there. We should have good pickup from the tank itself. The fuel lines themselves are new and they're properly sized. There's no kinks anywhere in the system, so we should have good flow all the way up to the pump. Now this is still a Delphi pump. It's just a little tiny guy. It's just a factory replacement, 30 gallon per hour, which is what should have came on this from the factory. Not a whole lot of volume, but it should be enough for this engine here. Now I do have a Carter replacement we could put on there. It's basically the exact same pump though. I mean, as long as it's working, I would assume they'd be about where they should be. But we do have that just in case. Really the only piece on the car that's still original to the car is the hard line right here. So I'm going to try to inspect on that a little bit. It did have a kink in there that I tried to work out originally. I'm going to see if I can make that just a little bit better, make sure that's not posing any kind of restrictions. I'm going to change on the fuel filters, and then I'm going to clean up the little guy that's inside the quadrujet itself. Maybe even just leave that one out for now, see if that helps our situation any. Additionally, this is a non-vented fuel tank, so maybe our fuel cap itself is just not letting air in. So I'm going to go ahead and replace that as well. Hopefully I can find one in stock at the local store. Otherwise I might try to steal the one off of my Impala next to me here, see if that one's a vented one or not. If we really can't find anything, I'll just drill a tiny little hole in it and see if that makes things better. So I'm going to start there. Those should be pretty easy things to try to diagnose, take care of. Go do another couple of test drives here, see if it's any better. If it's not, then we'll pull that carburetor apart, adjust on that float level, see if that helps things. If that still doesn't help, maybe I'll throw that Carter on here again, since at that point that's really all the options I've got. I do have an electronic clicky clacker that I picked up from Edelbrock somewhere around here. That's going to end up pushing, I think, a little bit too many PSI for that quadrujet, so I'd really like to not have to run that if I can, since I think that's going to cause us some float issues. But if we have to try to rig something like that up to get this taken care of and we still have time, maybe that's what we'll end up doing. But for now, just going to get started with the simple things, and hopefully one of those takes care of it. So I pulled out the little filter here from the Quadrajet, just been kind of tapping it here on the air cleaner lid there. And look at all this debris that has come out of that thing. Man, that certainly could be our issue. That is a lot of crap that just came out of there. So gonna go ahead and replace on that. I've got a spare here, thankfully. Picked this up for the other Quadrajet that I never really got around to doing anything with. So gonna go ahead, drop all that in there, replace on the inline filter as well, go out for a test run and see if this thing gets any better. So I just got back from a test run here. Changing out those filters seems to have done the trick. I was able to do a couple of pulls with no issues, so I am loaded up. We are ready to roll out. I am on my way to the track. We have made it through the track, and as you can see, we have a number. We just barely passed through tech inspection. They did give me some grief over being just single sprung on the carburetor there. Didn't even think about it. They just reused what came on the car originally. So he was nice enough to tell me to make sure that gets taken care of over the winter. So I'm gonna go ahead and get in line, let this thing cool off. The hesitation is back, but it seems to only happen when it gets really hot and heat soaks. So maybe the carburetor is just boiling the fuel. I'm just gonna let this thing cool off as much as I can, and then we're gonna hit the track. All right, so we're in line. We're in the burnout pit. Just waiting our chance here. I don't even know if this thing is gonna do a burnout with the way it's been running. I tried to let it stay cool as long as I could. Might just kind of have to feather it when it does that, see if I can get it to come back around. Maybe pull out that little pencil filter. Just can't figure out what it is. Tried to let it run cool this time, but no real luck. Probably in the 16s if we're lucky on that. Thank you. Let's go get parked and see how bad we did. She didn't feel too bad off the line, but it cut out pretty quick, probably right around like 60, and it took me a little bit to get it to come back around. So let's park and take a look and see how we did. Oh yeah, 16.98 at 80.54. So reaction of 0.684, 60 foot at 2.3, eighth mile at 10 at 63 miles an hour. Yeah, it seemed to come to life there later on a little bit, but Yeah, we are really just missing something. So I am pretty close here on my second run. We've been in line for a couple hours now. It's moving very, very slowly. Car lost some oil on the track and we just got bottlenecked up. But I did try to swap fuel pumps in between that. And the Carter pump that I put in was making too much pressure. It was blowing past the needle in the seat. Ironically, it is the correct Carter pump for the Quadrajet, so I don't really know what that's all about here. We're about to go try to make another pass because we've been sitting down here for so long. The car is really cold, so that's kind of the only option I've got left. This is going to be the last pass of the day for sure. It's getting late here. Ate up a lot of time swapping the fuel pump back and forth twice, trying to get that taken care of, but no real other choice, so let's give her what we got. I think my camera cut out on me there. The car did cut out on me quite a bit. This time it was like right before the 8th mile, but then it came on near the end, so maybe we did a little bit better. We'll see. Thank you. So yeah, definitely not the way I wanted this night to go. Kind of got stuck where I had to back up and then wait for a car to get pushed out of the way, so I think that's where the camera got screwed up. Yeah, wow. We really struggled off the line on that one. We crossed the line at 17.7 at 84 this time around, but our 60 foot was 2.9. Yeah, it bogged up just right off the line this time, so not the way I wanted this to go. So here are our two slips. The one on the left is going to be the first, the one on the right is going to be our second. We are number 48. So let's see here, our reaction time on the second run was 5.65, but our 60 foot was way down at 2.9. Oof. The 330 footer was 8.124. Yeah. We lost a full second in the 8th. It was 11.8 there versus the 10.8 on the first run. And we picked up a little bit of speed though, despite all that. We're at 66 versus 63 the first time around. Our 1,000 foot, yeah, about almost a second slower there. Can't do the math at the moment, but you can see our speed was starting to pick up there at that 1,000 foot. We're about just about 4 miles per hour faster, which ironically is where we finished out at as well. But yeah, it did start to bog again right at the end, so it didn't stay under power the entire time. Definitely a little bit frustrating, not the way I wanted it to go. I was hoping for a little bit better out of the car. I don't feel like we really gave the 402 a chance here. I think this poor thing was just suffering through whatever fuel delivery issue we had. I don't think this is really reflective of the state of the engine, so maybe we'll just leave this guy alone and come back next year, get this fuel situation figured out, and give her a couple more tries here and see what she can do before we drop that L78 in here. The Chevelle has survived track day, although not very fast, but for the most part, no issues other than fuel delivery problems. Just could not get it figured out. I spent a lot of time between that first and second run where I pulled the fuel pump out of here, put that Carter in, which is supposed to be the correct pump for the Quadrajet, but it kept blowing past the needle and seats. Ended up having to pull that pump back out, put the Delphi back in, so lost a tremendous amount of time, unfortunately. By the time I got back in line there for the second run, it was really late in the day. A car had blown up on the track, left a bunch of oil down, so it took a long time for us to get shuffled through again. Unfortunately, only got those 2 runs in. Even more unfortunately is the GoPro did not record that second run. I got there by the water trap, was ready to do the burnout, and then they backed me up because the car in front of me broke down and needed to be pushed basically backwards off the track. So I tried to stop the GoPro while I waited for that to happen. When I hit the button there to record for the run itself, it was just showing the good old SD error on screen, so don't think it came around till the very end of the run. But the car did really good off the line this time, had a lot of good power. and then it just kind of bogged terribly, so our 60-foot was way down. After that first bog though, it came back around, and then it ran under power pretty much all the way through. So we were able to kind of finish out under power. That's why we picked up a little bit of speed, but the ET was way down. We were at like a 17.7, so unfortunately not what we were hoping for, but I really can't complain. I mean, we just took this car. It had been off the road for 45 years. We fixed as little as we possibly could to just make it safe and make it run and drive, and it has survived 2 trips down the track. So we're back again at the old workbench here. It's the day after track day. I'd thought about throwing in the towel at the track. I recorded the video outro and everything. I was just super frustrated with the events of the day. All I wanted to do was give this thing a chance to show us what some old muscle could do, show us what was left in this 402, and just give her that opportunity. And I felt like we just cheated her on that. We just did not give her that chance. And even more mad at myself that I just wasn't able to get this ready last week, be able to get out there just to kind of feel out the track a bit more. It's my first time ever being there, so I had to figure out the tech inspection process, how to get lined up, what the different lanes and stuff like that were all for and things. So it just took up a lot of time. And then when we ran into the issues there after that first run, I tried to fix the fuel pump, thinking, okay, maybe that'll help. Blew past the needle and seat, so I had to go back to the original Delphi. I did look it up. That was the correct Quadrajet Carter pump, so it shouldn't have had issues, but those Amazon Quadrajets are kind of notorious for leaking, so maybe it was just a little bit too much pressure for it to handle. Didn't have the time to take care of it there, but that ate up so much of our time that by the time we got back into line, had to deal with the track being shut down for like an hour while they did some oil cleanup. We only got one more run through, and then that was it. I was hoping I was going to be able to get back in line and get another pass in, because I wanted to come back here and try to do something with that fuel cap there. I was actually thinking about just running without it, because I didn't drill it out, as you can see. And yeah, so I just couldn't end it there. It's just been nagging on me all night here. I've got to get this figured out. So we're back. We're going to try to determine what is going on here. So if it is a fuel pump issue, they do make a number of good low pressure, high volume fuel pumps. Edelbrock's got one, Carter's got one. There's a couple of Chinese knockoffs to stay away from, but they're usually rated anywhere from like 80 to 120 gallon per hour. Would be plenty enough for what we're going to be doing. The reason I didn't put one on there from the start is because we have that plan to put an L78 in the car, and I'm undecided on if I'm going to keep kind of the Quadrajet setup or if I'm going to go with EFI. And I've been leaning towards EFI. I'm very familiar with EFI. I've literally built the hardware for EFI on old cars, and I've spent years reverse engineering car ECUs and stuff like that. Right up my alley, just something I'm really familiar with. So that's kind of what my plan was. Still a little bit undecided on that, and that's the reason why I've just been kind of keeping things on the cheap in terms of the carbureted setup here. That's why I just went with like the Amazon Quadrajet there. I just went with like the dirt cheap Jags fuel tank. And that's why I've just been using these kind of factory style replacement fuel pumps, because I don't want to spend a lot of money on parts I might replace. But yeah, maybe that's going to come back to haunt us. But anyway, getting back to it. So Saturday morning, one thing I mentioned was the fuel cap here, that I wanted to pick up a new one. I never really got back to it on camera and mentioned what happened with that. So ended up finding out that there was one in stock, went to pick it up, and they could not find it. They did not have it. They didn't know where it was. So I came back home. I grabbed my Impala one since it's brand new here. I was going to see if that would work on there, but as you can see, it's just too big. But what that allows me to do now is to kind of compare the two of them. And so these fuel tanks here, there was a couple of different setups you could have, and they would determine what kind of cap you had. So I have a non-vented tank. There was a vented tank that was part of their emissions evaporative control system. And those cars would have a charcoal canister in the front, and that would kind of act as your vent. This one does not. So for that, I need to have this kind of vented cap on here instead of the non-vented cap. and this is the original cap that came with the car. And so the way that these should work is there should be a little check valve in here, and it should be a two-way check valve, so it should only vent under about 3 to 4 pounds of pressure. Otherwise, to kind of keep everything under control for emissions, that sort of thing, so all your gas just isn't evaporating and disappearing, these will essentially hold pressure up until like 3 or 4 pounds, and then it will finally release. That way your tank just doesn't swell and bulge and all of that other stuff. But they should openly allow air to be drawn through them. So when a vacuum is applied on here, it should just allow air to pass right through. Now, one thing I did notice when I picked these up and was just getting ready for the comparison here is, if we listen to this one, you can hear that there's like a little noise to it, and a lot of check valves have a similar kind of noise where you can hear sort of a little flapper or something like that moving around in them. And one thing I noticed on this one is, yeah, nothing. We should be able to basically take this thing, apply a vacuum to it, or try to blow through it here and just apply some positive pressure. It should fight us when we're trying to blow through it here, because I don't think I'm able to generate 3 pounds of pressure here with my cheeks. I'm trying to be very careful with the terms I use here. But I'm going to try to apply some vacuum here and see if I can just draw through it. And since this is the new one, shouldn't have any issues here. I'm going to do this off camera to avoid the comments. Wow, that'll give your lungs a workout there. So yeah, couldn't blow through it, but I was able to draw through it. Not a whole lot of volume, but it wasn't too bad. It was almost just like pulling through a straw, or maybe like a little kind of small straw, like one of those little coffee stirrers, something like that. All right, moment of truth. Let's give this guy a try here. Okay, not able to blow through it. So yeah, I am not able to pull anything through that. So I'm going to try to play around with this thing here a little bit. I've been holding on to this little pick here in my hand. So this little center hole here should have a little piston in it that you can kind of push down. And that's kind of how the pressure portion works. So this one I can just kind of push it down. It's just very light spring pressure. And that's basically just what keeps it from venting to the atmosphere and evaporating away. But it'll allow it to blow out if your pressure builds up to a certain level. So that one seems to move okay. All right, well. Okay, our little flapper noise has disappeared here, so it's kind of behaving like this one is now. So let me see if this still works on the test. Okay, so that was interesting. So when I was pushing around on that little spring there, that flapper noise from shaking it around stopped. But as soon as I applied some vacuum to it, it kind of, I could hear it let loose, and then the vacuum started flowing, and there's no more restriction there, and then it's back to making noise. But this one here, it's like we've got no flapper noise, and I can't draw through it. So let's see if this little piston even moves on this thing. Okay, yeah, it goes down. It's kind of gritty at first. It's like it's sticky. Okay, now it's definitely a lot more free than it was. But yeah, the piston's like not coming back to the same location that it was. Not sure if the camera's gonna pick that up very well or not here, but right down inside that hole there is that little piston, and it's not coming up quite to the same level as the one on that side or where it started from. So let me see what happens now. Oh, okay, I can blow through it. Okay, it works in both directions now. So that's frustrating. But yeah, not really sure why it's like not coming back by itself. I don't hear that flapper. Okay, I tapped it a little bit and it's starting to come. Still letting air go both ways though. Alright, I'm going to play around with this a little bit more, see if I can get it figured out. So I've just been working that little piston in there up and down. You can see that it's kind of up right now. Pretty close to where it started, maybe not quite as high, but listen. Not sure if the camera will pick that up, but it's now making that noise similar to what the other one did. So I'll go ahead and give this the test here. Ugh. As much as I hate to admit it, it is now working correctly. Man, that is frustrating. I'm gonna go ahead, probably get some like PB Blaster or something in there, see if I can clean it up a little bit. We'll slap the thing on, go for a drive, and see if the issue is fixed. Alright, so I got the fuel cap set in a mode where it's both allowing air in and out pretty much permanently. I didn't drill it, I just kind of jammed it to where that little check valve was stuck permanently open. So it accomplishes the same thing for right now. We're going to go give us a test drive and see how she runs. So for the one guy who was mentioning my windows, I promise you I've cleaned these things multiple times, even again right before we left. I am just going through Windex like it's fuel in this thing. So one thing I noticed yesterday is I had my GPS going and our speedometer is off. It is off by almost 5 miles per hour high. So right around 2,500 RPM was about 53 miles per hour on the old speedometer there. Everywhere else is pretty much off by the 5 miles per hour. So I did some calculations when I got home, and it really seems like we got a 355 in the rear end of this thing from the different speeds that we were on. So yeah, it seems to make about closer sense than the 330 did, just with the noise level. A bit interesting though. So once again, it is just a beautiful day for a drive here in Michigan. I think everybody else is out too, so not the greatest for test drives, there's just a lot of traffic. Made it back from that test drive, had the exact same issues, ran to the gas cap and checked it. It's moving air in both directions. That was not our culprit. That makes me feel a little bit better that it wasn't something just super simple. It definitely was a problem, so having that kind of fixed and taken care of, at least for the moment until I can get a new cap, is a good thing. It's just one thing to kind of check off the troubleshooting list here, but we're kind of back to the drawing board. We're still up in the air on what's causing this problem. So I've got a couple of things here I can still try. I'm going to go ahead and put that Carter pump back on here. Going to pull the carburetor apart there, check on that float level, probably pull out the needle and seat as well, see what the diameter is, maybe swap in the one from the other quadrijet to see if I can get this thing to stop leaking, see if we can improve flow through this thing any way possible. But the sun is setting quick here, so I'm just going to try to rush through this thing so I can get back out there and see if that solves the problem. So unfortunately, all of my efforts have been in vain. I've been out here plugging away at this thing for a couple of hours now and just cannot come up with a working solution. So I put that Carter pump on there down there. Looks the exact same as the one I pulled out, but it just keeps blowing right through the needle and seat here, no matter what I do. I put my original Quadrajet back on here, same exact thing. I ripped apart the Amazon Quadrajet, checked the float levels, they're all set perfectly fine. I replaced the entire float assembly, new needle and seat. I tried adjusting it to add more tension. Nothing, still just blows right through. So yeah, very frustrated here, just cannot figure this out. But unfortunately, that's going to do it here for the old Chevelle because I am out of parts, I'm out of options, out of things to try. But I'm not going to give up. This thing has got me frustrated enough that I'm going to try to get to the bottom of this. I'm going to go ahead, order up one of the low pressure, high volume pumps. They should move about 3 to 4 times the volume, but they'll run around 6 psi, which should be perfectly fine here in the Quadrajet. So we shouldn't have any issues there. I'm going to pick up a lightweight push rod at the same time. I don't think we're getting any kind of floating issues because it was pretty sporadic at the RPMs that this would happen at. It wasn't very consistent, and I don't think that that's causing our issues here, but the L78 is going to rev even higher than this, so it'll just be nice to have one of the nice lightweight ones on hand. And if I do decide to go carbureted with the L78, I'll be able to use that high flow fuel pump with it as well. So not entirely money wasted, but again, that's going to do it here this time on the old Chevelle. Thank you all so much for watching and tuning in, leaving the comments. I do try to read them all. I do feel like I let you guys down this time, unfortunately, not being able to get this thing down the track just under its own power to see what it had. I'm not going to give up though, so hopefully I'll have this thing up and going for you next week, and I will catch you then.